In this video, I'll show you how to rotate instances along an object using geometry nodes. And this is very useful for many things, but one example is if you have like some sesame seeds and you're trying to put them on a hamburger bun. You'd want to distribute the seeds on the bun, but then you'd want the seeds to actually rotate along with the faces of the bun. This is also really useful if, for example, you're putting sprinkles on a donut. You wouldn't want the seeds to just randomly pop out at odd angles. You'd want them to rotate down with the surface of the other object. So that's what I'll show you how to do in this video. Now, if you're a beginner to geometry nodes and you'd like to learn all the basic fundamentals of geometry nodes, then definitely check out my Geometry Nodes for Beginners tutorial series. Link to that will be in the description. So for this example, I have this simple object here. I just modeled a simple hamburger bun, and then I have this sesame seed here. So we'll just select the hamburger bun, and then I have the geometry node editor right here. So I'll just click on new to add a new geometry node. We're first going to add a very simple setup to distribute the seeds on the bun. So I'll go to the add menu and I'll search for the distribute points on faces, drop this here. I'll also go to the add menu and we're going to search for the instance on points, and we'll drop the instance on points after the distribute points on faces. And then to be able to see the original geometry, we need to go to the add menu and add a join geometry and put this after the other nodes. And then we want the original geometry to go up to the join geometry. So we're adding the original mesh back up to the final setup. Now to add this object data, we can go to the add menu and we can search for the object info node, or if you have a collection of objects, like if you have a few different sesame seeds, you can go to the add menu and you can search for a collection info, and you could use the collection info instead if you have a collection group of multiple objects. I just have one object though, so I'll use this object info. Now on the object here, I'll click on the eyedropper and I'll just select the sesame seed. And then I want to put the geometry here into the instance on points. Now you can see that the seeds are placed on the hamburger bun. Now, if for some reason the seeds are floating or they're at a weird position, that might be because the origin point isn't in the very center, because the origin point of the objects is where the objects are going to be distributed. So if this is happening for you, you can click on Object, Set Origin, and you can click on Origin to Geometry, so the origin is in the very center and now the seeds are placed correctly. And if you are using a collection info and you're using a collection of seeds, for example, a lighter one and a darker one, you can add the collection info, you can choose the seeds collection, and you can plug the instance up to the instance here. And if this is happening where the seeds are kind of moving out at an odd angle, you need to turn on the separate children, reset children, and then you also need to choose pick instance. So that's what you need to do if you have a collection instead of just a single object. But in my case, I'm just using this single object. Now the problem with this setup is that the sesame seeds are all pointed out in one direction, and that's not realistic because if you were to sprinkle seeds on a hamburger bun, the seeds would fall and rotate along with the hamburger bun. Now you can use the rotation values here on the instance on points node, but this is changing it for every object at once, and I instead want each seed to rotate along with the faces of the hamburger bun. So to fix this, you can plug this rotation data, which is from the distribute points on faces, and you can stick that into the rotation. So now we're giving the instance on points the rotation data of these faces. So that does definitely look a lot better, but the problem is that now all the seeds are kind of pointed upwards and they're not randomly rotated around. So it doesn't look very natural or realistic. So to fix this, we do want to use the rotation data from the faces of the hamburger bun, but then we want to rotate each seed around on its own axis. So to do this, we'll go to the add menu and we're going to add the rotate rotation node. And we'll stick the rotate rotation node between the distribute points on faces and the instance on points. Now we want this rotation value to be going into the rotate by, so put this into the bottom one, and now in the top here we have the X, we have the Y, and we have the Z axis. So you can see this Z axis is controlling the local Z, so even though like this one is pointed over here and this one is pointed up here, it's rotating each seed individually by its local Z axis. So now we can rotate this around, but it's still all rotating at once, and I want each seed to be randomly rotated around. So to do this, we can search for the random value node. We'll drop this here and we can put the value into the rotation. Now the problem with this is that the minimum and maximum values are controlling the X, Y, and Z axis at once. So we want to click on the float here and we want to change it to vector instead. This way it's going to break up the values by X, Y, and Z values. So now the value can go into the rotation, and then here on the max values we can turn these all to 0, and we can just change the bottom one, which is the Z. So now you can see that each one is being rotated randomly, and you can turn this this up to a giant number if you want, or you can just click on the value. You can type TAU for tau, and that is a math equation which creates this number here, which makes sure that they're all rotating around very randomly. So that is the basic setup, but there is just a few extra things if you want to make this look a little bit nicer. So one thing, you can see the seeds are overlapping. So on the distribute points on faces, you can change the random to Poisson disk, and this will give you a distance min. Now if you turn up the distance min, this is going to add a minimum distance between each one of the seeds. So if I turn up the density max and make it really big, you can see there's going to be a minimum distance. So even if I turn the density max up more and more, there's always going to be a distance between all the seeds. Another cool thing you can do is to change the scale. Now on the instance on points, there is this scale value which will change all of them at once, but to make it randomized, I can go to the add menu and I can add another random value node, and I can put the value into the scale. So then the maximum value can be maybe just like a 0.9 or a little bit less than 1, and I can turn up the minimum value. So now we have a little bit of variation in the size, maybe even like a 0.5. So some of them are bigger and other ones are smaller. Now another cool thing you might want to do for an object like this is just have the seeds on the top of the burger bun but not on the bottom, and to do that you can use weight painting, and you can weight paint where you want the instances to be. Now I actually have a separate tutorial on that, so if you'd like to check out that tutorial, I will have it linked in the description. So that'll be it for this video, so I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for watching. And if you'd like to watch more of my Blender quick tips, definitely check out my Blender quick tips tutorial playlist. Link to that is in the description. You can also check out my geometry nodes tutorial playlist to watch more geometry node tutorials, and definitely check out my geometry nodes for beginners tutorial if you'd like to watch a tutorial series to learn all the basics of geometry nodes. But I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for watching.